Hey there. Hope this message finds you well and healthy. And I appreciate you joining me while I take just a few moments to have a gander at recent earthquake activity within the Midwest USA, more specifically the St. Louis region, but a little bit more broadly speaking, we'll look at Missouri and a couple recent earthquakes that I would consider fairly rare. I hesitated to make this video just because I don't know. It was within the past hour I saw Mary Greeley, who you may be familiar with. She put a video out regarding the recent earthquake just east of Kimmswick, Missouri, and it's now listed as an eastern Missouri earthquake. And I figured she would talk about the earthquakes that happened in a little bit more a north central portion of Missouri that I found out is not very common. So yeah, I was a little surprised she didn't talk about that specifically while mentioning the earthquake that just happened here in what is listed as eastern Missouri, but in all actuality, if you zoom in, it's on the Illinois side. So when I first saw this appear, I didn't see it until this morning. It was listed as happening in Kimmswick, which is just across the river over here in Missouri. And Kimmswick is 20-ish miles south of St. Louis, 25, 30, somewhere in that range. You can see St. Louis metro area. And then south of Arnold, you'll find Imperial and the small town of Kimmswick. If you're from the area, you're familiar. With the festival that goes on there. There's a very famous restaurant. I can't think of the name at this point, but if you just look up Kimmswick pies or festival, I think it's a peach festival or strawberry. Either way, you probably know what I'm talking about if you're from here. If you're not, check it out. It'd be a good activity if you're ever passing through eastern Missouri. So there are not many earthquakes that happen this far north of the New Madrid Fault, based upon my observations over the past few years. I grew up in St. Louis. I still live here. And as a kid in the 90s, the New Madrid Fault, Missouri, however you want to say it, I'll butcher it either way. It was talked about quite a bit from what I remember. Especially, yeah, it was like elementary school age. So when we were doing drills, like earthquake drills and stuff in elementary school, there was also quite a bit of talk about we are in like one of the most volatile, if not the most volatile parts of the North American continent, being this close to the New Madrid Fault. So I've been aware of this for quite some time. I didn't really care for even longer until just a few years ago when I started to watch the live stream of, say, Old Faithful, and I really started to gain this appreciation of geology because I didn't care at all about it in school, but it's funny how things kind of come back around when you have a chance to research and learn at your own pace without someone telling you what to do. But I digress. This earthquake, again, a bit far north. Most of the New Madrid related earthquakes happen in the actual zone, which is the most hazardous area, which is, as I mentioned earlier, this is probably the most volatile, hazardous part of the entire U.S., the northern continent, even more so than the San Andreas Fault. So they generally are going to revolve around this region or be concentrated in the kind of like the boot heel of Missouri is what we like to call it down here near Cape Girardeau, Poplar Bluff, south of there. Sykeston is also near there. So to see one up here, I think this is probably the second or third within, I think, 2022. Uh, so very interesting to see that activity. But what's even more interesting, if you go back 7 days, yeah, so within the past 7 days, there was this 2.6 in Madison, Missouri. I think there was a 2. Yeah, that's right. There was a 2.6 and a 2.4 within 2 days of each other up here in Madison, Missouri, which is kind of a strange place. You can see over the past 7 days, within this region, most earthquakes are happening down in the highly concentrated hazardous zone. So to see one up here was a little odd, and it kind of got me thinking, I wonder how many earthquakes have happened in this region over the past 100 years. If you've never used the custom search function within the USGS latest earthquakes map, you scroll all the way down to the bottom, you'll see that there's it may say custom search for you if you don't have a search defined already, but you can see this one has an end time, latitude, essentially the coordinates for the square that I drew, which represents the region I'm interested in. So only report back earthquakes that started January 17th or were reported as early as 1922, January 1922. No minimum magnitude, and within this region, ending a couple days ago, which is actually when I I was looking at this recently and thought about making a video but didn't, because I figured someone would probably talk about this, but neither Mary Greeley or Earthmaster has, from what I've seen. So anyway, if I select this custom search, we can see there are 4 earthquakes that have happened in this portion of Missouri. Let me see. So if you go to modify search, you can see how you build the search itself. Probably should have showed this from the start, but the nice little feature over here, draw a rectangle on map, this shows, you can see visually represented what region I'm looking for. So from basically between Columbia and Jeff City up to Brookfield, not sure what road that is. That was 36. Yeah, so I mean a decent chunk of north central-ish Missouri, or central Missouri. But there's only been 4 earthquakes recorded. 5, technically, if we go a little further south. But I was focused more on this region. And over the past 100 years, there's only been 4 earthquakes here. I don't know, it seems kind of odd. Granted, that's just a very small period of time relative to all of existence. So I mean, I guess I can't say it's a small period of time, but relatively speaking, compared to all of the other data that's been compiled, I bet if I expanded this search out, why not? If you're still watching at this point, you may have an interest in this. Otherwise, you probably already tuned out. So I'm going to expand the map. I don't want to get the actual boot heel of Missouri, because that'll create a ridiculous amount of results, most likely. But let's just look at this region. Yeah, so massive amount of earthquakes within the rest of Missouri, or at least eastern Missouri. So this is on the outer limit, or yeah, I mean, that's pretty that's on the most outside rim of what could potentially be associated with this fault zone. So I don't know. I just thought it was interesting that first of all there was one, and then there was another within about a day and a half or so, and then we see the obviously the 2.5 that just happened a little less than 24 hours ago. Well, I appreciate your time again. Thanks for tuning in. If you're from St. Louis or Missouri or anywhere in the Midwest and recall learning about, sorry, bud, or hearing about this fault zone as a kid and being aware of it, I don't feel like I've really heard anything about it in recent history. I'm 38, and this was the 90s when I was hearing about it, so it is what it is. Take care. Peace.